Sandy Steinman here, President of Background Checks Express, your one-stop source for accessible, accurate, and affordable background checks. In this series of videos, we've been discussing the real risk that employers take who fail to conduct pre-employment background screening on their applicants. We've looked at some real-life cases which have cost employers millions of dollars when they lost negligent hiring lawsuits. We also discovered that employers lose those kind of lawsuits 79% of the time. Those are bad odds. In our last video, we began to take a look at the circumstances that must be present for a plaintiff to allege negligent hiring. And we discovered that injury is the first thing that must be alleged. The second ingredient in a successful negligent hiring lawsuit is that there must be a duty of care owed by the employer to the plaintiff. In other words, the injured party has to show that there's some connection between himself and herself and the employer, and that in those cases the employer owes a duty of care. There's many situations that this duty of care raises its head, such as a co-worker on the job, a member of the public in a location where customers are expected to have contact with employees, such as hotels, tenants in an apartment building who had contact with maintenance workers, and other situations where the victim and the dangerous employee were likely to come into contact. The sum and substance of this is that an employee breaches the duty of care if he creates a situation where a third party is likely to be brought into contact with the employee who caused the injury. Many employers have tried to use well, it just wasn't foreseeable that my employee would ever kill that person. But the fact is, it doesn't matter whether or not the injury was foreseeable, just that any injury was foreseeable. And the news gets worse for certain employees who have a higher degree of care because of the nature of the job. Security guards, for example. Courts hold security companies to a higher standard of care because there's a greater likelihood of harm to third parties. Similarly, courts hold that employers who send workers into people's homes obviously should be held to a higher standard. Employers who fall into that category are service companies, plumbers, heating and air, pest control, a whole multitude of other service businesses that actually go into people's homes. Those particular employers must take a special degree of care to avoid negligent hiring lawsuits. You can see that employers who do not perform pre-employment background checking really set themselves up as targets. In our next video, we'll continue our discussion of the ingredients in a negligent hiring lawsuit. If you've been following our videos, I hope you've come to the conclusion by now that you want to take prudent steps to avoid becoming a defendant, because win or lose, it's expensive. Remember, employee problems are caused by problem employees, and if you want to avoid those problems, just call me today at 844-727-3366, and I'll show you just how affordable it can be to perform accessible and accurate background checks. So be safe, hire safe, and I'll see you in the next video.